In our last module, we looked at environmental analysis, SWOT analysis, pest analysis, and Porter's five forces analysis, and we also looked at the identification of critical success factors in organizational competencies. In this module, we'll look at the identification of strategic issues. At the heart of the strategic planning process is the identification of strategic issues. A strategic issue is a fundamental policy question or challenge affecting an organization's mandates, mission and values, product or service level and mix, clients or users, cost, financing, organization, or management. Identifying strategic issues gets people focused on the most important issues facing the organization. Strategic issues are often framed as questions that you can do something about and that have more than one answer. We frame strategic issues as questions because strategic issues are not strategies, and they shouldn't be confused as strategies. So there should be multiple ways that we can approach different strategic issues. The idea is that identifying strategic issues can get you to focus on what is truly important within your organization. Identification of strategic issues generally begins by focusing on the organization's mission and purpose, and determining whether the issues that have been identified align with the mission and purpose of the organization. Virtually every strategic issue involves some sort of conflict around questions like what will be done, why will it be done, and how will it be done. These conflicts are good though, and even needed, because they help to clarify what the issues really are. In the identification of strategic issues, a key leadership task is to promote constructive conflict, which is conflict aimed at clarifying exactly which issues need to be addressed in order to satisfy key stakeholders and to create public value. Constructive conflict refers to conflict in which the benefits of engaging in conflict exceeds any costs that may be experienced. Constructive conflict generates productive, mutually beneficial, shared decisions. In constructive conflicts, the process becomes just as important as the end result. Individuals come together to redefine or strengthen their relationship for the greater good of the parties involved. Destructive conflict, on the other hand, often flows from narrowly defined or rigid goals. Most times, destructive conflict will produce negative results. With destructive conflict, individuals involved become less flexible and assume that the opposing party must suffer defeat. Generally, with destructive conflict, those who are involved parties, tend to succumb to personal attacks, threats, and a general tone of hostility. In identifying the strategic issues for our organization, we want to be aware of the difference between constructive and destructive conflict. We want to promote constructive conflict and try to avoid destructive conflict. In identifying strategic issues, we first need to understand whether or not the issue that has been proposed is strategic or really operational. Strategic issues will require responses that are different from the status quo. For example, changes in stakeholder relationships or implementation of radical new technologies within our organization would be examples of strategic issues. Operational issues are more technical in nature. if one of the issues for our organization was to include a broader range of stakeholders, that would simply be a means of trying to increase the stakeholder capacity that we have. This perhaps would not be a strategic issue, but more operational in nature, a technical fix. Similarly, if we wanted to upgrade our computer software system, this is not necessarily a strategic issue. Rather, this would be an operational issue. Once we've determined whether or not the issue is strategic or operational, we can then prioritize whether the issue needs to be addressed now or whether we can wait and address the issue at a later point in time. We also need to identify exactly what is it about the organization's mission, mandates, internal and external environment that makes the particular issue that we have identified strategic. At this point in the planning process, you may want to be aware that key decision makers may decide to terminate the process at this point. Key decision makers may be too afraid of addressing conflicts or may not wish to undergo the necessary changes that may be needed in order for the organization to truly move forward. To provide a recap on Step 5, the identification of strategic issues, the following steps are involved. The first is to develop the strategic issues. And remember, strategic issues are formed as questions. For example, how can we increase the enrollment within the university? The second step would be to discuss the factors that make the issue strategic: the mission, mandates, and environmental conditions. Third, we need to discuss the consequences of not addressing the issue. Ideally, strategic issues are not current problems or crises that your organization is facing. They are issues that the organization can actually do something about. Review the 8 approaches in Bryson to get an idea of how to identify strategic issues when going through the actual strategic planning process.